Hello and welcome. It's Purple Orchid, and today I would like to speak about the ego versus the soul. Now, we're all born with both. We all have an ego and we have a soul. None of us are any different. We all have the same thing. The ego is the part of us that represents the self-centered, protective, and it's often fear-driven. These aspects of our psyche, while the soul embodies the higher self, the inner wisdom and a connection with something greater than ourselves. When we're about 2, the ego is created by the soul to protect and buffer itself from pain. And you know what a 2-year-old is, and that's when the tantrums start, and the ego is massive. The ego is not who you are, but who you think you are. Now, it took me a long time to learn this, and I learned it the hard way. I really had experience of it, and I was told that I didn't know that I didn't know. And we as humans, I think, don't know that we don't know. And that probably doesn't make too much sense. The ego is rational, and it rationalizes things, while the soul just believes. The ego hears, but the soul feels. Our ego usually wants stability, security, safety, achievement, success, glory, and lots of attention. Meanwhile, the soul wants to discover our raison d'etre, our reason for being, and the essence of why you were created in the first place. And that was something I remember thinking while I was going through the dark times. You know, who am I? Who am I really, and why am I here? What reason have I got to be here? Not just the mundane things of everyday life. There must be another reason. And it took me a lot of pain and a lot of near-death experience until I actually realised what my purpose actually is, and that I did have a higher purpose. And once I was told to smash my ego, try and get rid of all these things that are limiting you in your life. And I really didn't know what that meant. But our ultimate destiny is to know how we can serve others with compassion in our lives. Ego can destroy us. It forces us to believe that what we are is the person in comparison to other people. And much of our energy is spent believing this fiction, and it is fiction. It's energy that we could spend enjoying our life. Ego causes harm because it takes away the joy of living in the present moment. You get stuck in your head so much that you can't fully engage in the moment and what is happening around you right now. How many of us have spent a car journey either driving or a passenger, and we don't see anything? We're too busy thinking about what's just happened and how we're going to respond to it. Sitting at home, do we actually notice the small things when we're eating? Things around us, our animals, a lot of us do, but how many of us get something stuck in our heads, and that seems to be stuck there, and we're trying to work out what we're going to do about it, how we're going to respond to it. Even in our beds, can we sleep because something's going on in our heads? And we all do it. Ego is really a collection of survival mechanisms designed to deal with trauma, and it's really the result of insecurity. It blinds us to our faults. And when you enter into any conflict with another human being, it triggers our ego. Because the ego lives in fear, while our soul lives in love. Our soul's always with us, but it's smothered by the ego. When the soul's smothered by the ego, then our ego is thriving. And we decide to make decisions to put other people down. The ego focuses on I, me, and the well-being of and the image of ourselves, the image that we want to represent and portray to other people. The soul focuses on the well-being of other people and people as a whole. And as I said, ego is based on fear, and I didn't learn that until I joined an organisation, which I'm going to talk about in the next part. The ego dominates at the expense of our soul. It believes that only we can create our own reality and our own image, the one we want to represent, to be the person that other people see. But inside us is the real person. And very often fear makes us hide that real person that we don't want others to see. And when we are able to crack our ego and expose ourselves, warts and all, that's when we get freedom, absolute freedom. And I say, I did not know anything about this until 15 years ago. I had been living on ego and a false self-image for all of my life, and I didn't know it, but I knew and I learned that fear was at the basis of all this. The ego is able to isolate us. It can stop us seeking help. We end up trusting no one. We only focus on the good of ourselves at the expense of others because we cannot see the bigger picture. That's all just now for that part, and I'm going to do a part 2 shortly. Thanks for listening, and I hope it gives us all something to think about. Have a good day, folks. Enjoy.